Janus Razor by Jim Lee. 1. The Cataclysm. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, and the other left. 2 women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch, therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Matthew 24, 40-43. Though it strikes you as seeming a little absurd, I'm here to announce the end of the world. It'll happen sometime between now and high noon. It doesn't give you much time, as it's happening real soon. It'll start with a whimper, it'll end with a bang. It'll leave a big hole where we could have sang. This is the end of the world. For 5,000 years you must surely have heard Nostradamus and Jesus and Buddha and me. We said it was coming, now just wait and see. So everyone outside, look up at the sky. It's the last time you'll see it, so wave it goodbye. You took things for granted, you thought it was free. Say goodbye to the leaves, the trees, and the sea. There's nothing more useless than a car that won't start, but it's even more useless at the end of the world. This is the end of the world. For 5,000 years you must surely have heard Nostradamus and Jesus and Buddha and me. We said it was coming, and now wait and see. Bob Geldof. Before all the weeping, before all the cursing, before the first newspaper ran the photo of the man in the old Cadillac convertible, blurred into surrealism as he barreled toward the barrier at well over 100 miles per hour, with what came to be that iconic grin splashed across his face, there was laughter. There were plenty of other kinds of chaos, of course. In those days, the world seemed jam-packed with it. All of life was a mad jitterbug from one crisis to the next. None small enough to be able to disregard entirely, but none large enough to stop the music and clear the dance floor. And though we had shootings and terrorist bombings and deadly virulent diseases being sent through the mail and cities set aflame every night, we still managed to find something capable of distracting us from it all and making us laugh. We laughed at the people who tried to kill us. We laughed at the people who tried to help us. We laughed at the deviants and rapists. We laughed at the saints and evangelists. There was no tragedy horrific enough, nor any holy thing sacred enough, nor any profane thing foul enough to silence that laughter and shake us out of our stupor. We weaved from nightmare to nightmare, like a frat boy doing a pub crawl, ignoring the pounding in our heads, the vomit on our clothes, and the holes in our hearts. Our rallying cry was entertainment, and whenever the well ran dry, we simply lowered the standards to make it easier to find more. When the news aggregating sites stumbled across a tiny snippet from the newswire about the discovery of a previously unknown near-Earth object by an amateur astronomer, it was almost categorically ignored. The public had been treated to so many stories of impending doom from this asteroid or the other over the years that we were immune to it. The eggheads in their ivory tower laboratories had cried wolf one too many times, we said, and enough was enough. Screw them, we said. The next mention was that it was not an asteroid this time, not another dull chunk of rock, but something luminous, discovered by someone whose name was reported to the public by a functionally illiterate media personality as Janus. This now was something interesting, and the grateful public demonstrated their gratitude for the next several days with videos posted online ridiculing the scientist, saying that women had no business trying to perform science. She should get back in the kitchen and make a sandwich, that she had probably gotten some glitter fingernail polish on her telescope, and other equally meaningful and rational disputations of the scientist's findings. a late-night talk show offered a prize for the best video capable of summing up the salient details, and the network was flooded by videos of burly men slapping effeminate men wearing blonde wigs and admonishing them to return to the kitchen. Those which did not fit this description seemed, in the main, to be aggrieved, shrieking feminists, wailing that the other variety were sexist, and invariably offered burly women slapping effeminate men wearing blonde wigs. The public was ecstatic that the status quo had been restored. Somehow, in spite of the raucous din, the scientist himself was able to make himself heard, and a video became common knowledge. He clarified that his surname was Janus, and he insisted that even this fact was not important. His video included a summary of the methodology he had used to try and estimate the object's size, velocity, and trajectory. He indicated that he had been unable to ascertain its mass, but that it appeared to be not only moving in our direction, but appeared to have changed course to intersect Earth. Worse, he claimed it was accelerating. If his calculations were correct, he claimed the object was very nearly identical to Earth in diameter. He closed his video with various means to contact him and made a passionate plea for others with greater technical knowledge to either corroborate or dispute his findings. For 72 hours, the internet was alive with trending articles and videos responding to the scientist. Easily greater than 90% of these featured as their primary focus the speculation that the scientist's given name was Hugh. But many of those which made up the balance featured clip art of pyramids from the back of the U.S. $1 bill, audio dubbed in from the theme to an old government conspiracy show called The X-Files, and various snippets of video game and movie footage of spaceships of all shapes and sizes. A fair number of these featured effeminate men in blonde wigs, burly men, and burly women, all slapping participants who had been dressed to approximate the appearance of Mr. Janus in his video. There was no response from any official channel, and the public at large took this to be a tacit repudiation of Mr. Janus's claims by the establishment. No television network or entertainment site existed which was not joining in to pile mockery upon this lone voice of caution. Even the normally dull governmental public service channel broke from their normal coverage of the sausage factory which is the legislative process and took to conducting man-in-the-street interviews, ridiculing Mr. Janus. View counts on some of the more popular videos in this genre racked up into the hundreds of millions, and site owners giggled giddily as they watched their ad revenue climb. The scientist announced a live streaming event. All the main social media platforms, television networks, entertainment sites, or entertainment sites masquerading as news sites, all encouraged their audiences to tune in at the appointed hour. "Hugh Janus live," they proclaimed in anticipation. When the time came, all the servers streaming or mirroring the content were packed to capacity. Mr. Janus appeared, precisely punctual. The video was being shot in a bare, poorly lit room, rather than the well-lit home office where he had detailed his findings previously. He was seated in what looked to be a battered Barcalounger. On a small TV table next to the chair, a small revolver shone forth a sullen gleam. He looked directly into the camera. "You are all worthless, ignorant fools," he stated calmly. "I have tried to share my data in the hopes that some lingering remnant of the potential our species once had might seize it, and in so doing, preserve that potential beyond the approaching cataclysm." He sighed heavily. "One calculation only had I neglected, but I see the error now. There is no remainder. After all our millennia of struggle, the net sum of the worth of man, it turns out, is zero." He leaned forward, and the image of his tired and bloodshot eyes filled the screens of eager viewers all over the planet. "I hope you all die," he said, again with the same measured calm. He leaned back into the chair. Fortunately for me, it seems I will get my wish. I don't know what this thing is, but I can tell you this. It is no comet. It is no asteroid. It is pure energy, and it is stalking all of you. A wan smile crept onto his lips. Many years ago, a man by the name of Karl Panzram, speaking in general terms with regard to humanity, stated, "I wish you all had one neck and that I had my hands on it." When I heard that, as a young man, I never understood how anyone could feel that way. Now, I know better. Karl Panzram understood you all better than I ever will. And now, my discovery, my Janus anomaly, will be the instrument of your demise. In 7 days' time, it will be the razor blade that mercifully slices humanity's collective throat and spares the galaxy outside the threat of your accidental infection of other worlds. Janus' expression morphed into a scowl. It will be no more and no less than you deserve. Oh, I know, none of you will believe me. None of you even have the capacity to understand logical, rational thought anymore. But even a hog destined for the slaughter can find the moon in the sky. Those of you in the eastern time zone of the U.S., go ahead and go outside and look at the moon when I'm done. Then you will believe, and be damned to you. He swept the revolver from the table into his hand and raised the barrel toward his face. You will all die in 7 days, but I have no interest in accompanying you. Therefore, on the off chance that there is any existence beyond this corporeal one, I will make my departure now. And if I should find there any authority whom I may implore, that you all remain eternally entombed in this dead world, I will do so with every last erg I may possess. Never more truly was the phrase spoken than now. Goodbye, cruel world. And with that, he promptly placed the muzzle in his mouth, pointing upward, and pulled the trigger. A rushing fountain of gore sprayed from the top of his head, and he toppled back into the chair. The live stream continued to display his lifeless corpse, and all across the world, instant messages of "Encore!" zipped back and forth at the speed of light, along with countless emojis of smiling, laughing, cheering faces. All across the world, except in one time zone. Throughout the eastern time zone of the United States, many viewers stepped outside, and on that clear night, just to the side of the moon, a pale blue dot could be clearly seen. Small, but very visible. It played tricks with the eye, almost as if flashes of yellow light danced within it. The final message and death of Stanford Janus broke all records. It was the single most viewed video stream in all of recorded human history, before or since. Not from that first live viewing only, but as the moon casually plodded along in its circuit and the earth whirled beneath her, it was watched again and again. And with each passing hour, links to new footage, shot into the night sky with quivering hands, focused on the pale blue dot with the dancing yellow core. With each passing hour, the laughter died, and the voice of the world was replaced with a choir of rising panic. In the days that followed, the thin veneer of civilization, which had served as the evidence man kept ready to hand whenever his superiority or dominance over the other species of the world was questioned, was violently torn away. Looting, burning, raping, murdering. Humans spent their last hours in pursuit of their basest desires and impulses, and all the while, the blue sphere grew larger in the sky, with the dazzling core of lightnings flickering ominously. On the day before the anticipated impact, the sphere began to noticeably squash, to flatten. Any television which had not already been tuned to channels watching it from various vantage points as the Earth continued to twirl innocently in its path, was tuned there now. The world watched as the blue and yellow ball flattened into a shimmering disc-like blade. One network affiliate streamed footage from directly beneath this razor's edge, and the local crowds there assembled cheered as it appeared to vanish into invisibility overhead. But other angles confirmed that it had simply compressed to a mathematically perfect plane of impossible thinness. Enough people remained with a vestige of the knowledge needed to feed this information into their computers to calculate the time and destination of impact. When the Razor, as it was now being called, struck the Earth, it would bisect the United States along a line starting just west of Mercedes, Texas, and ending a few miles east of Rooseville, Montana. Some simulations gave slightly different results. Roads leading out of cities and towns along the route, like Taos, New Mexico, and Butte, Montana, were suddenly choked with people clamoring to escape, hoping to cheat death, hoping that the Razor would simply slice through the Earth, leaving it unharmed except along the line of the cut. This sparked panic around the globe, as various projections imagined the Razor exiting the corpus of the Earth through Tel Aviv, Moscow, and many other places. In that final day, as the Earth ponderously made what might be its final rotation, its surface along the expected path of greatest destruction emptied out, becoming more barren of life than it had been in 500 years, perhaps more. Hours shrank to minutes, as even the terror of the waiting world quieted to palpable, silent tension. All the debauchery of the past 7 days seemed pointless and distant. Minutes shrank to seconds. In isolated pockets around the world, elderly voices rasped out whispered prayers, almost as a nearly forgotten afterthought. Janus Razor thundered out of the inky void, and without even the slightest pause to consider the thin tuft of atmosphere, sliced the entirety of its impossibly thin but enormously wide disk through the soft, warm body of the Earth, like a razor through boneless human flesh. End of Part 1.